All right, let's get into it. Today we're going to be building a portfolio, but not the kind you might be thinking of. Not stocks, not bonds, but a portfolio of wealth. We're going to really break down what that word means, way beyond just what's in a bank account.
This quote, it probably sounds pretty familiar, right? For most of us, we grow up with this idea that wealth is something you can count, something you can hold. It's the nice car, the big house, the numbers on a screen.
But what if that's just one piece of a much bigger puzzle? And here's the kicker. What if focusing only on that one piece is actually making us poorer in ways we don't even realize? Let's dig into that.
So first, we have to start with the usual suspect. Let's talk about the most common definition of wealth, the one that's all about the power of possessions. The technical term for this is, materialism. And research has a pretty simple way of measuring it. It really just comes down to how much you agree with a statement like, I'd be happier if I could afford to buy more things. It's a whole value system that puts stuff right at the center of happiness.
And this is not a new idea, not at all. Way back in the 1860s, Henry David Thoreau saw this exact same cultural bias. He basically pointed out that society cheers for the guy who chops down a forest to make a quick buck, but kind of scoffs at the person who just appreciates the forest for what it is. The whole game was already rigged to reward material gain over everything else.
But here's the thing. For as long as people have been chasing material wealth, there have been warnings about what happens when that's all you chase. These cautionary tales are centuries old. Take the parable of the rich man and Lazarus. It draws this really sharp contrast between two different ways to be rich. On one hand, you have the guy who just stores up things for himself, and on the other, you have the idea of being rich toward God, which is really about a kind of deep internal abundance. The warning is pretty stark. Focusing only on the first one comes with a heavy price.
What's really fascinating is that modern psychology is now backing up this ancient wisdom. There's something called the conflicting values perspective. It sounds academic, but the idea is simple. Chasing material things often clashes with the stuff that actually feeds our soul, like family, community, or just being okay with who we are. So that nonstop pursuit of more stuff can literally get in the way of our own happiness.
So if the material portfolio has its limits, what are the other assets we should be building up? Let's talk about what we can call the inner portfolio.
A huge asset in this portfolio is something called spiritual wealth. Now, this isn't necessarily about religion. It's about building your own internal compass, your own framework for self-worth. It's the ability to know who you are and what you stand for without needing a like, a promotion, or anyone else's approval to feel okay. It starts by asking, what do I truly believe in?
And you can see the difference so clearly right here. The goals of material wealth, they're all external. Get more stuff, make more money, get more praise. But the goals of spiritual wealth are all internal. It's about building a solid sense of self, nurturing real connections, and being resilient enough to handle life. One is built on what others think, the other is built from the inside out.
Okay, next up is another huge one, relational wealth. And the thinker Francis Moore Lappe describes this so well. It's about finding richness in our connections with each other, in embracing the flow of life instead of trying to control everything, and in building our future together. It's the one kind of wealth that actually gets bigger the more you share it.
This quote just nails it. At its heart, relational wealth is built on stuff like gratitude and honesty. When you're really aware of how valuable help is, both giving it and receiving it, you start weaving this incredible safety net of trust and support. And that is a kind of security that money can never, ever buy. This brings us to the final asset in our portfolio. And honestly, this one might be the most profound of all. It's about the value we create that outlasts us. There's this wonderful little fable about an old woman named Ma Nuru. Every single evening, she would go out to this barren piece of land, and one by one, she'd plant tree seedlings. Her back was bent, she moved slowly, but she did it with this amazing purpose.
So one day, a child sees her and asks the obvious question, why are you planting these trees? You'll never live long enough to sit in their shade. And her answer is everything. She just says, because someone once planted for me. She wasn't doing it for herself. She was paying it forward.
And that, right there, is the definition of a legacy. It's not about how long your life is. It's about how long your care, your impact lasts. It's about planting trees whose shade will cool people you'll never even meet.
Now, I know what you might be thinking. This is all beautiful philosophy, but come on, that's not how the real world of finance works.
Well, you might be surprised to hear that's starting to change.
Take a look at this. This is a report from PGIM, a global asset management firm that handles over $1 trillion. And the very ideas we've been talking about, well-being, sustainability, long-term value, are now becoming central to how the world's biggest investors think about the future.
Seriously, investment firms are now designing entire strategies around things like the UN's Sustainable Development Goals. They are actively hunting for companies that contribute to global health, to inclusive growth, to a sustainable planet. They've figured out that long-term profit and long-term societal value are not separate. They're actually two sides of the same coin.
So this new definition of a valuable company is one that's actually solving real human problems. Investors are looking for the innovators in medicine, the businesses creating good jobs, the ones improving how we connect with each other. Why? Because these are the companies building a future that can actually last, and a sustainable future is a profitable one.
Which brings this whole conversation right back to you. The very same principles that are reshaping global finance can reshape our own lives. If you think about your life as your single greatest investment, it really makes you ask, are you diversified? Are you intentionally growing your spiritual, your relational, and your legacy wealth? Or are you all in on the material? So take a moment. What's in your portfolio?